Good morning, Cruise Cougars, and happy Saturday. I hope your first week of learning was amazing. If it looks like I just rolled out of bed, newsflash, I did just roll out of bed. I hope you guys are hanging out still in your PJs. Here is some fun content and a fun project that you can do today if you're looking for something to do. I am here, and I've got something that I would like to share with you. Something that I love to do. If you guys don't know this about me already, is I love fly fishing. So I thought, what a better way to connect with you than introduce Saturday morning fly tying. So what I'm going to do is tie one of my favorite flies, one of the most productive flies out there, the classic woolly bugger. I'm going to tie that for you in a moment. And then I just thought of, how could we make some sort of art with maybe some materials that we have around the house that could be fun and enjoyable for you. Now, this isn't an assignment that is it's not something that you have to do, okay? This is kind of something that if you are feeling like being creative, if you're wanting to get into the art mode, then this is something for you. I would love to see what you guys come up with. Alrighty, Cruise Cougars, how are we doing, everybody? We are going to jump right into this new segment. This is going to be Saturday morning fly tying. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit about what I like to do when I have some free time and I'm not making art or teaching. I like to tie flies. They don't call it the art of fly fishing for nothing. So the first thing we want to do here is go ahead and pinch the barb. Okay, the reason we do that is because we want to protect the fish. We might lose a few more fish, but it really is going to protect the fish's mouth and not injure them when you're pulling them in. Okay, I'm going to put a gold cone bead up on the top. This is going to add a little bit of weight to it and just get that fly down in the water. Now, we are going to be tying a woolly bugger in size 4, so that's the size of the hook. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm just going to add a little bit of lead wire. It's a 0.02 diameter lead wire. This just gives it a little extra weight. Okay, now the woolly bugger is probably one of the most traditional and most versatile fly fishing streamer flies that you can use. It can imitate leeches, it can imitate little bait fish, it can imitate worms, lots of other different things. You can tie it in any color, really. You can tie it in purple, black, olive, orange, chartreuse, black, white. I am going to tie it in an olive color today. Okay, so first, the yarn I'm using is a 140 denier, which it's pretty strong. Okay, so it's really going to hold up nicely. And this fly ends up becoming pretty bulky. So I'm just going to add my thread, get that going on the hook shank. Okay, I'm going to wrap up to the top, and what I want to do is just create a nice thread base onto the shank of the hook. Now the shank of the hook is the flat part before it starts to, we call it the bend, and then there's the hook. And then the barb is what we pinched at the beginning of this segment. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to take some turkey marabou. Okay, this is going to be the tail of the woolly bugger. Okay, so I want to make that tail about the length of the hook shank, the straight part. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that in, and I'm going to continue my wraps forward. Okay, and then this marabou is going to end up becoming the body of the fly. We want to give it a little bit of bulk, right? Sometimes the flies can be a little too thin throughout the center. I'm going to add my marabou on here, and we're just going to lock it in, trim out the remainder, and just sort of clean it up. Okay, it's important that as we're tying through here, we try to keep our fly as neat as possible. We don't want a bunch of feathers or fibers sticking out the sides. Okay, and just go ahead and we're going to go ahead and lock that up. That looks nice, doesn't it? Beautiful. Next thing we're going to do is add some polar pearl flashabou. Okay, and this is just going to give that fly a little bit of pizzazz that it needs when it's swimming through the water. Okay, whenever light shines on this pearl flash, it really brings that fly to life and animates it. So I'm going to tie in 2 strands to each side. So we're going to tie that in. Now I'm going to go ahead and fold it over to the rear side. Okay, pull it back, tie those in. And when we cut these, we want to cut them just behind the tail. We want them a little bit longer than the marabou feathers. Okay, so now what we need to do is we are going to go ahead and add what is called some schlappen, which is a different type of feather. Okay, this is considered a hackle feather. Okay, so a schlappen feather works great for adding more body to the fly. I'm going to go ahead and tie that top of that feather in. Going to go ahead and wrap all the way to the front of the woolly bugger. I'm going to add what's called a half hitch knot. And I'm going to put that on the vise. This is considered a rotary vise, so I can actually turn it. And it makes tying up these hackles nice and quick. So we want to get it started all the way in the back. And as we begin to turn this, you'll start to see what happens with these hackle feathers. Okay, it's going to give that fly a lot of body. Okay, it's going to give that fly a lot of motion in the water. We could even say that the fly is undulating. That's a good word, isn't it? Undulating. Undulating means it has a nice fluid up and down movement, like the motion of a wave. Okay, undulation best applies to waves, but it can also be a way to describe similar types of movement. Undulating. Try to use that word in your vocabulary today. Undulating. So what I'm doing now is just trying to pull back some of these hackle feathers and sort of get them to lay down nice and neat. All right, so we pull everything back, try and keep it clean. Okay, I like to have a little more size in the front of the fly, because when it goes underwater, all of those fibers are going to lay back and they're going to undulate as it moves through the water. So what we do now is just go ahead and pick out some of the schlappen feathers that got trapped as we brought that forward. Okay, and things really coming together, really taking shape. Once we get all of those hackle fibers picked out, we just want to try and clean up what we're doing. I'm going to take a few wraps at the top of the fly, and then we just have a few more things to add. Now, these aren't traditionally used with woolly buggers, but I like to use them. These are just rubber legs made out of silicone. And again, that's really going to add to the undulation of this fly. I'm going to say it one more time. Undulation. Undulate. So I'm going to tie in 2 rubber legs. I'm going to tie 2 from the center closer to me on the back side here. Tie those in, take a few wraps, and then I'm going to take another set of rubber legs and I'm going to go ahead and tie it on the other side. This could give it an appearance of, add in that crayfish element. Maybe it's a crayfish or a crawdad on the bottom of the lake or river. Okay, fish go crazy over crawdads. Okay, go ahead and clean up the top, and then we just have really one more thing to add, and that is going to be the Sanyo's laser dub. Okay, so dubbing is just really fine little fibers, and it works really well to make bodies, or we're going to call this kind of a collar. Okay, so it's little tiny fibers. The laser dub is actually a little bit longer, so we add what's called a dubbing noodle. So what I'm doing is I just lick my fingers and I just kind of roll that dubbing around my fly line or my string. So as I begin to wrap that around the top of the hook, shank, right near the head, I just continue to tighten that as we roll, making sure to hold all the feathers back, making sure to hold my rubber's legs back. And that's really going to give this fly a nice finished look to it. One last turn there. And the last thing that we really need to do is go ahead and tie off the fly. So we do what's called a whip finish. I have a fancy tool that helps me achieve that. So what we're doing is we're basically tying a knot, but we're wrapping the tying thread over top of itself 4 or 5 times. Lock it in there. I'm just going to go ahead and throw another couple turn whip finish on here, making sure we don't trap any of our fibers. And then we just go ahead and trim off the last little bit of tying thread there. And we have ourselves a woolly bugger variation fly. Now remember, this could mimic a bunch of different types of animals. It could be leeches. It could be a little bait fish. It could be a worm, aquatic worm. Okay. And we just want to go ahead and trim those legs a little bit. And this thing is ready to fish. I hope you guys enjoyed Saturday morning fly tying with Mr. Montgomery. And now to the artwork. Materials you're going to need are pencil, paper, Sharpie, coffee grounds, a little cup of water, and a brush. Now you can pause this video while you go collect your materials. And remember, at any time during this project, you guys can pause and catch up. You can rewind, whatever you need. Take as long as you need. Now I've put the image that I'm going to be drawing for the reference in the top right of the screen. So what I'm going to do is start out by drawing the little gold cone head bead. Okay, so it's kind of like sort of a triangular shape with rounded edges. And then I'm just going to begin to start building the fly from that. Now you'll notice that I'm sketching really lightly. So if I have to erase anything, I can get my eraser and I don't leave permanent lines. So again, if I'm moving too fast for you, go ahead and pause the video now, and then you can catch up and then continue on. So I'm really lightly doing a bunch of little small lines here to give the effect of that turkey marabou that we were talking about. Now, that darker line I just drew is going to be that rubber leg that we had tied on earlier. And I'm just going to continue lightly sketching. I'm not drawing every single feather that I see. I'm just trying to give the illusion of turkey feathers. Here I'm going to add the appearance of the fish hook. Okay, and then I'm actually going to start drawing the vise. So now when I start the vise, I'm going to start with a triangle and then a rectangle off of the triangle. And once again, everybody, if you need more time, YouTube has a feature in the bottom right in the settings that allows you to slow down the video. You could also use the pause part of the video to catch up if you need. So I'm starting very loosely, very light sketches, and I'm slowly beginning to refine my drawing by adding more details, adding texture to it, and adding little bits of value in here to my drawing. Now for the background, you can see my shirt is sort of blurry in the background of the picture, so I'm just sort of adding the appearance. This is really going to fill up our painting here, and it's going to give it that nice finished full look that we want. Okay, so now I finished my drawing. I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and carefully outline my fly that I drew. Okay, adding some small details. And again, everybody, I am really just about trying this for the first or second time. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. This was just sort of an idea that I had this morning as I was making my wife coffee before she was going to go to work. And instead of throwing away the coffee grounds, I decided let's throw them in a bag and see what we can create. So now I'm going to move on to outlining the hook and the vise. Now I'm looking at my reference image, and any areas that I see that are really dark, those are the areas that I'm going to add Sharpie to, aside from trying to outline all of my pencil marks. Okay, if you're not interested in drawing or doing a painting of the woolly bugger, feel free to experiment. You can really draw and paint whatever you guys want. This is just sort of a fun idea that I had. Okay, and I think we're all about done outlining here. What I'm going to do is maybe just erase a little bit of pencil, but for the most part, I kind of like the way the pencil looks. So I'm going to take my cup. There's not very much water in there. And what I'm going to do with the clean water is just go ahead and add coffee grounds. Maybe you could get a spoon and add the coffee grounds in that way. I don't really mind. I'm just going to go ahead and take a pinch and add the coffee grounds into the water. Okay, put it in there. I'm just going to kind of dip my hands in there and sort of try to get the excess coffee grounds off and spread a little bit on the paper. Who knows? If you make a little bit of a mess, that's all right, as long as we're trying something fun here. And I really like the way that splatter looked, so I think I might try to use that a little bit later with my painting. So what we're kind of doing here is we're sort of just giving this painting a little bit of a wash feel. Okay, the original paint, the literati paintings were done with ink, India black ink. But instead of the ink for this one, we're actually just going to use coffee water. Okay, now if your wash is a little bit too light for your liking, you can try and adding some more coffee grounds to it. If it's too dark, you can try adding a little more water to your mixture. And what I'm doing here is I'm just very loosely painting over my Sharpie marks, adding a little bit of color, texturizing the background. I'm really just sort of making this up as I go. And I really like the look of the excess coffee grounds on the paper. I think it's got a really nice look. Now I'm going to try and do a little bit of splatter technique. This is really fun to do. All you have to do is add some coffee water to your brush and just sort of flick the bristles. And I think we are finished. So what we want to do now is take this painting and we want to leave it somewhere where it can dry. So that could be outside. That could be over on another table. We just want to let this thing dry before we really start picking it up and going. So here is the final product of our coffee painting inspired by the Japanese literati landscape paintings. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Make sure you sign your name on the bottom, add the year, and when this thing's all finished up and dry, do not forget to post it to your Seesaw account. That was awesome, guys. As well, you can always have your parents take a picture and email to me or send it over to me on our Instagram, which is Cruise Visual Arts. See y'all later. You stay classy.